I'm the Bill Professor, and you are about to learn software means a creative new concept in the computer industry. Take you step by step through learning your new software package. On this now are some other tapes available in my series. With them, you can watch and learn at your own speed. Stop and practice anytime and review topics you don't understand. I suggest that you view each in its entirety. Then go back through them with your computer and your software and practice each. All of my tapes are designed to get you up and run quickly. Once you have viewed, practiced everything that is on these tapes, I think you'll find the software manual much easier to understand. Now get started. Welcome my introductory tape on Apple II line of computers. After this short little practice, you'll know how to have your Apple IIc or Apple IIgs computer and have it in your software. Before we start, let me explain the using an Apple IIgs computer for this lesson. You may have an Apple IIe or an Apple IIc, but there are similarities among users. Most of what I'll be explaining will apply to all three computers, and when there are differences, I will to tell you. Most Apple II computers have at least one disk drive connected to it. If you have an Apple IIs computer, I will assume that one of these disk drives is a 3.5-inch drive. A second disk is optional, but I will be demonstrating how to set up a 5.25 disk drive as a second drive. Also, I will assume that you have a copy of the Apple IIgs system disk or the II system disk. You have a blank disk ready to use when we practice formatting and copying disks. Regarding system disk, I will be demonstrating version 3.0. Version 3.0 system disk requires you to have an Apple IIgs with 512K of memory, or an Apple IIe or Apple IIc with 108K of memory. If necessary, you can obtain additional memory and version for the system from your dealer. Now let me introduce you to our students. They will be learning the Apple computer along with you. And remember, if you review a topic, we never get repeating ourselves. Let's this lesson by learning about some of the basic components that come with your Apple IIe, Apple IIe, or Apple IIs computer. The most important component is the Apple computer itself. It is here that most of the actual computing takes place, and because it is the most vital component, it is very often referred to as a central processing unit, or CPU. Several peripheral devices are plugged into your computer, but the most useful ones are the keyboard, the monitor, and drives. The peripheral device that may be attached to your computer is a printer. If you have an Apple IIg, you will also have a small device called a mouse. Together, these components comprise what is called a computer system, and they perform most of the work that you will be doing with your computer.
Professor, are there other peripheral devices connect to my computer?
Yes. You can also attach a modem so that you use your Apple computer to communicate with others that may not be directly compatible with yours. In addition, joystick and headphones that may actually be added to your computer system. All these devices are very useful. They are not used as essential components of a computer system, so we will not talk about them in this lesson. If you would learn more about them, refer to your manuals for more information.
Professor, I understand that all this make up a computer system. Well, how does this all work together?
That's a good question. It's important to understand how your computer system works to get the most out of it. Basically, a computer system uses two types of peripheral components which are known as input and output devices. Input devices get information to your computer, and output devices are used to get information from your computer in a form that is readable by you. One device for inputting information is a keyboard. Most computer keyboards consist of 80 or more keys that are to type in words and numbers. Words and numbers are accepted by the computer as the information will be translated into command or which may appear in a letter imposing. In your Apple IIe, Apple IIc, or Apple IIgs keyboard has special keys that give additional capabilities to some of the keys. We'll learn more about these special keys. The mouse that is attached to an IIgs keyboard is another type of device. It is used by many programs as a type of pointer, which you can select programs from special menus and draw intricate pictures as well. The monitor is an output device. It is on this screen that the results of most of the commands you give your computer are displayed. If you are to you'll see it appear on the screen as you type it in. If you are using the mouse to create design, you will see the create display right before your very eyes. Another output device is the printer. The printer is used to produce a paper copy of documents you write or designs you might create. Anything that you can type in can be easily transmitted to the printer later. A special device that can be used both as an input and as an output device is a disk drive. Imagine that a disk is like a filing cabinet with several file drawers. When a file drawer is opened, the information which it contains can be copied and transmitted to the printer. Conversely, information that may be within the computer can be copied and transmitted to the open file drawer. In reality, a disk drive is simply a sophisticated recording playback device that transmits information to or from the computer. The open file drawer is the program or data disk contained in. The heart of your computer system is an Apple computer. Earlier I called this the central processing or CPU. A look inside reveals why I use this name. All of the necessary elements in controlling the input-output devices are contained here. Also, the memory and calculator components reside here. The green board that you see is the main circuit board. It consists of thousands of interconnected electronic circuits that unite the memory, calculating, and peripheral controlling devices. These circuits are like a sophisticated track system with roadways leading to and from all the essential components on the board. The memory and calculation components are made of integrated circuits. The little black holes that you see are called chips. Inside chips are integrated circuits that have been microscopically etched onto a single piece of silicon. Each of these chips perform a specialized task, but they are usually classified in either RAM or ROM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory, that this type of chip is used as a temporary memory device. RAM chips store the information that you provide, usually from an input like a keyboard, mouse, or disk drive. As long as the computer is operating, it will store information that it must remember in RAM chips. ROM means read or memory. ROM chips contain information and special commands that regulate communicating all of the interconnected components on the main circuit board and the peripheral devices like printers, keyboards, and disk drives. Because the regulating command required each time the computer is activated, ROM chips are permanent memory devices that cannot be used for temporary memory storage. One very important integrated circuit is called the microprocessor. In the 2GS, this microprocessor is D5C816, and it can directly communicate with 16,777,216 memory locations. This chip is the brain of the computer because it performs calculations at lightning speed and processes all of the information provided it by RAM and ROM and peripheral devices. To summarize all that I have said so far, the computer system is an array of input-output devices like the keyboard and mouse, monitor, printer, and disk drives. These peripheral devices are plugged into the computer where information is passed to or from them along circuits on the main circuit board. The processor is like a traffic policeman. It processes information back to it, performs any necessary calculations, and then determines whether information should be temporarily stored in RAM or whether it should be passed back to the peripheral devices. All of this happens so quickly that you usually notice that any of it is taking place.
You made it really easy to understand, but we're excited to use this computer. How do we set up?
The type of computer that you have determines how you connect peripheral devices to it. If you have Apple C or Apple IIgs, peripherals like the keyboard, monitor, disk drives, and printer plug right into the computer through external connections called ports. If you have an Apple IIe, all peripherals will be connected to the inside of the computer through plug-in devices called slots. The Apple GS gives you the option of using these internal slots. You will need to use these to connect all Apple products, and peripherals like printers that have been produced by other manufacturers to the Apple IIgs computer. Start by seeing how peripherals are connected into the external ports of an Apple IIc or Apple IIgs. Looking at the back of the computer, notice that there are several ports. Each port is let you know exactly what peripheral connects to it. For instance, the disk drive connects to the is labeled with a diskette icon, and the monitor port has a label that looks like a TV screen. On an Apple IIgs, the keyboard is external and must be attached to a port at the back. This is the only port that may seem confusing because its label indicates daisy chain. That means that more than one peripheral can be connected or daisy to the computer through the keyboard. The mouse is one peripheral that is connected to the computer, the keyboard of an Apple IIgs. Okay, let's get started. Begin by finding the power switch on the back of the computer. Be sure that this switch is set to the off position. We don't want to risk damaging peripheral while we're connecting it to the computer. Find the power cord. Plug one end of the power cord to the computer and the other end into a grounded outlet. Now, if you have an Apple IIgs, cut the keyboard. The keyboard looks kind of like a spiral telephone cord. Plug one end of the keyboard cable into the keyboard port on the back computer, and the other end of the cable into one of the ports top of the keyboard. Notice that there are two ports top of the keyboard. No matter which of these two ports you use to connect the keyboard cable because they are identical. The mouse also connects into the Apple IIgs keyboard. Plug the mouse cable into the port top of the keyboard that is not being used to connect the keyboard cable. Now it's time to connect drives. There are two kinds of drives that can be connected to the disk drive port in the back of the Apple IIc and Apple IIgs. These are 3.5-inch and 5.25-inch disk drives. On an Apple IIgs, you may have 4 disk drives daisy-chained into the disk drive port, but no more than 2 of each type may be connected in this manner. You may also daisy-chain one of each type into this port. Begin by connecting the cable attached to disk drive to the disk drive port on the back of the computer. If you have a second disk drive, this cable is daisy-chained into the port on the back of the disk drive that is connected to the computer. After you have connected all the disk drives, tighten the cables with the thumb screws attached to connectors. The Apple IIgs will use one of these disk drives as a setup drive when the computer system is first powered up. Therefore, the order in which disk drives of dissimilar types are connected is important. As a rule, 3.5-inch disk drives are connected first in any chain. If you are confused about the order in which your disk should be attached, refer to your disk drive owner's manual for more information concerning the subject. Finally, Apple manufactured serial-type printers like the Image Writer 2 are connected into it on the back of the Apple IIc or Apple IIgs computer. Just plug the printer cable into the printer port on the back of the printer. Plug the other end of the cable into the port on the back of the printer. Plug the power cord into the printer and the other end of the cord into a grounded outlet.
Professor, how do we plug a peripheral device into a slot inside an Apple IIe or Apple IIgs computer?
That's a good question. Without IIe computers, peripheral devices, drives, and printers must be plugged into a slot inside the computer. The internal slots of the Apple IIgs are optional but very useful for connecting certain peripherals that can only be connected through. For instance, newer Apple printers are of a type known as serial printers. Because the printer on the back of the Apple IIgs is a serial printer port, these printers can be plugged into that port. Some popular printers, however, are printers and require an interface card that must be plugged into a slot. Interface cards provide the connector for the cable that must be attached to the peripheral. Now, see how a printer's interface card is attached to one of the internal slots. The procedure demonstrated here will be similar for internally connecting all peripherals. However, if you use an Apple IIe computer, you refer to your manual for additional information about connect disk drives. To plug an interface card into the Apple II or Apple II's computer, you must first remove the lid. Removing the lid of an Apple IIe is relatively simple, but removing the lid of an Apple IIgs is somewhat difficult. Wrap your hands around the rear corners of the Apple IIgs computer and hold the lid with your index finger while pressing on the lid with your thumbs. When you feel the cover loosening, remove it from the case and put it in a safe place. Now find the power supply. This looks like a long narrow box inside of the case. Check to see that power has been turned off to your computer and touch the box to discharge any static electricity body. Do this to avoid damaging internal components with static electricity. Next, find the slot that you will use to plug in your interface card. Apple recommends that you use certain slots depending on the device you are connecting when you plug in the interface cards. These slots are numbered from 1 to 7 as you look inside of the computer and see the power supply case on the left side. Beginning with the leftmost slot, slot 1 is recommended for connecting printers. Slot 2 is recommended for connecting a modem. Slot 3 should not be used by any type of interface card on an 2GS computer, since using it might interfere with the Apple 2GS's built-in e-column display. Slot 4 can be used to connect any type interface card. Slot 5 should be used to connect 3.5-inch disk drives. Slot 6 should be used to connect 5.25-inch drives. And slot 7 can be used by any interface card. Notice that there are covered holes on the back of the computer. Remove the hole plug that is nearest to the slot that you intend to use. On an Apple II, these plugs simply pop out. On an Apple IIgs, turn the plug retainer in a counterclockwise direction. Begin attaching the printer by pulling the cable that connects to the interface card through the hole in the back of the computer. Attach the cable to the interface card according to the directions you will find in the manual that comes with the interface card. Now, plug the interface card into its slots. Attaching the gold connectors on the bottom of the interface card, plug this edge into the slot. You will need to apply pressure to the card and push it into the slot. But don't let it from side to side. Instead, use your thumbs to gently lock the card end until it slides snugly into the slot. Finally, attach the other end of the interface card cable into your peripheral device. If the device has a power cord, plug it to a grounded outlet. Don't forget to replace the lid to your computer when you have installed all interface cards into their internal slot and connected all of the cables to their peripherals. The final step in setting up your Apple IIe, Apple IIc, or Apple IIgs computer is to connect the monitor. There are several types of monitors that you can connect, but they are basically of two types. Monochrome or composite color monitors can be used by all three types of Apple II computers, and analog RGB color monitors that can be plugged directly into a port on the back of the Apple IIgs computers. Monochrome or composite color monitors have a cable that's identical on both ends. One end of this cable plugs into the port at the back of the monitor. The other end of the cable plugs into the identical looking port on the back of the computer. Tighten the rope.
Each of the connectors and plug the monitor's power cord into a grounded outlet. Professor, now that the computer's all set up, are we ready to start using it? We're almost ready. Brad, you can start up your computer right now if you have program to run, and you can probably get successful. However, the Apple IIgs has several built-in characteristics that you want to or need to change depending on the peripheral devices you attach to your computer. So you may want to customize the look or feel of your computer to your specific taste. The Apple IIgs has a special program called the Control Panel, which is always available in case you would like to change signature. For instance, with the Control Panel, you can change colors
of the text or text background, the volume of the built-in speaker, and the responsiveness of the keys on the keyboard. Once you have made these changes, they will always be used by the computer when it starts up. Of course, you can use the control panel anytime if you want to change something about Apple IIgs. Let's practice using the control panel to set the battery-operated clock and calendar that is into your Apple IIgs. This is something that you only need to do once because it should last for between 5 to 10 years. To activate the control program, you will turn your computer on in a special way. So let's get started. To begin, find the power switch on your monitor and be sure that it is turned on. Now find the special key on your keyboard marked Option. Be depressing this key when you turn on the power to your computer. Finally, find the power switch to your computer. It is located at the left rear of your computer as you are facing it. Okay, with the index finger of your right hand, hold down the Option key. While holding this key down, reach the left side of your computer and turn on the power of your left hand. You should now see a numbered list displayed on your monitor. This list is the gateway to the control panel. Enter the control panel by pressing the number 1 on your keyboard. You now are looking at the control panel main menu. This is the main selection screen, and just like a menu in rest, you use this screen to select characteristics about the Apple IIgs that you would like to change. For instance, notice the word display at the top of this menu. Display controls characteristics as the color of text, the color background on which the text will be displayed, and whether text should be displayed in 40 or 80 columns. To make action from the main menu, you will need to use special keys on the keyboard. Find the arrow keys on your keyboard. You will use the up and down arrows to highlight your options listed on the main menu. Now find the return key. You will use this key to select the option you wish to change. Okay, press the up arrow key. Notice that each time you press the up arrow key, it moves the highlight to a new option on the main menu. Keep pressing the up arrow key until you have moved the bar on top of the clock option. Now just press the return key. You should now be looking at the clock display. This is the option you have chosen from the menu. Notice that the time and date is displayed in a rectangular box near the right of this display. The time and date shown there is probably wrong, so we will use the items on this display to make the appropriate changes. Now notice that month is highlighted. Change the number that is displayed here using the right or left arrow keys. Try pressing the right arrow key now. Each time you press this key, you should number displayed next to month increase. Try pressing the arrow key. Each time you press this key, the number should decrease. Alright, use the left or right arrow keys to change the number so that it displays the appropriate month. Ours is 12. Let's change the day and year now. Press the down arrow key to highlight day. Press the right or arrow keys to change the number until it is appropriate. Ours is 26. Once you have changed the day, press the down arrow key to highlight year. Again, press the right or left arrow keys to change the number until appropriate. Our year is correct, so we won't change it. Next, let's set the correct time. Press down arrow key till hour is highlighted and then use the left or right arrow keys to change the number to the appropriate hour. Ours is 3. Be sure that you are correctly setting the hour either AM or PM. Press the down arrow until minute is highlighted and press the left or right arrow key to display the appropriate minute. Ours is 25. Finally, press the down arrow key until second is highlighted. If you want to change the second, use right or left arrow keys to set the appropriate second. This, however, is optional. By the way, you may have noticed that two options called Format have check marks to them. These check marks, the Apple IIgs has been preset to characteristic displayed. For instance, the format option for the date shows that the date will be displayed as a 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and a 2-digit year. You can change that preset characteristic to another date displayed by simply highlighting Format and then pressing the left or right arrow keys. Since the preset characteristics displayed are very common date and displays, there is really no need to change them. Okay, you have changed the time. To save the changes you have made so that the date and time always correct when you start up the computer, just press Return key. Press Return key now. Notice that the rectangular box now correctly displays the date, and you should once again be looking at the Control Panel main menu. If you change any other characteristics about the Apple IIgs, you simply highlight the option as Return. Even though it is kind of fun to customize your computer, there is usually no need to make any changes because the characteristics that are most often used have already been preset for you. One option on this menu that you may need to change is slots. You have a peripheral device attached to an interface card which you have inserted inside of the Apple IIgs. You will need to change one more of the characteristics associated with the slots option. This is because the ports on the back of the IIgs correspond to the slots inside of the IIgs. For example, the printer port on the back of the computer corresponds to slot. That means that you can't use a printer that you have attached to an interface in slot 1 until you have activated this slot in the control panel. Otherwise, the IIgs will assume that the printer port on the back of the computer is active. Making all of the changes possible using the control panel programs more than we have time to do in this lesson. If you need to make changes such as activating slots, refer to appendix of your Apple IIgs Owner's Guide. That's enough of the control panel for now, so turn off your computer. Just reach around the left side of the Apple IIgs and turn off the power switch that is on the back left panel on the rear of the computer. Let's review what we've learned so far. You now know something about a computer system. Remember that some peripheral devices like the keyboard are called input devices because they allow you to get information into the computer. Some peripherals like monitors are called output devices because they allow the computer to get information back to you. Inside the computer are circuits, ROM chips, RAM chips, and the microprocessor. It is here in the central processing unit that all information and calculation takes place. You also know how to set up your computer. Remember, many peripheral devices can be attached directly to the back of Apple II and Apple IIgs computers through the appropriately labeled ports. However, some peripheral devices must be attached to interface cards that are connected to your computer, the internal slots of the Apple IIe and Apple IIgs. With the Apple IIe, slots are the only way to attach peripherals like this and disk drives to your computer. The control panel is a built program that allows you to customize your Apple IIgs by changing certain preset options found in the panel main menu. You can access the control panel program by pressing the key when turned on your computer. Remember, once you have changed a setting in the control panel, you have to change it again until the battery that is built into your Apple IIgs needs to be replaced.
Professor, now are we ready to use the computer?
You run any application with your Apple computer simply by inserting the application disk into the startup disk drive and turning on the computer. What I mean by application is a program like a word processor, a database, an educational program, or a program that entertains like a game. Usually an application program comes on a single disk, and when you start up the computer with that disk in the startup drive, the applicant takes control of the computer. What you see on the monitor and what you can do with the computer depends on the application that you are using. To practice starting up and using your computer, use the Apple IIgs system disk or the Apple II system disk that I talked about earlier. This disk contains several programs called utilities. Utilities help you to manage all the data will probably begin to accumulate as you continue to use your computer. While we practice with this, we will learn about utilities that use the mouse on the Apple IIgs and other utilities that use the key Apple IIe and Apple IIc computers. We also learn how to prepare disks to save information we create while using an application, how to make identical copies of disks. Before you use system disk, however, it is a good idea that you write protect it. Protecting any application disk is a good idea, because this prevents it from being accidentally erased or damaged. Unless your application's manual specifically directs you not to protect it, you should always do so. If your system disk is one of the 3.5-inch variety, you write protecting a small plastic tab to the backside of the disk. Simply a sharp pencil and slide this plastic tab toward the disk. If after you move the tab you can look through a small window, properly write protected your 3.5-inch disk. Write protecting 5.25-inch disk is placing a small piece of plastic tape over the square notch that has been cut into the disk side. You can usually find an ample supply of plastic pieces that are ready-made for protecting inside of any box of 5.25-inch disks. You may have noticed that there is no notch inside of your Apple II system disk. If this is the case, that disk is already write protected for you. Okay. Now that your system disk is properly write protected, insert it into your startup disk drive. With an Apple IIc, the startup drive is the one built into the side of the computer, and with the Apple IIe, the startup drive is the cable connected directly to the computer. On the Apple IIs that I am using, the startup drive is the 3.5-inch drive. Turn on the power to your monitor and then reach around the left side of your computer and turn the power switch that is on the back panel. After several seconds of disk activity, you will be rewarded with the appearance of an application on your monitor. If you are using an Apple IIs computer, the application that you see is called the System Disk Window. System Disk Window is always the first thing that you will see when using the Apple IIgs system disk, and it displays a list of other applications that you can run from this disk. If you're using an Apple IIe or an Apple IIc, the system disk has no system disk window. Your will look different, so please be patient while I discuss this window with Apple IIgs owners. The system disk window is a mouse-based application that lets you use a mouse if you have one attached to your keyboard. As I said earlier, the mouse is an input device you can use like a pointer. Try using your mouse now by moving it across your desktop. You should see a symbol called a pointer moving in a corresponding way across the monitor. Whenever you move the mouse on the desktop, the pointer will try to mirror that movement. With a little patience, you can use the mouse to move the arrow so that it is placed in any location on the screen you desire. Now practice moving the pointer with your mouse to specific locations on the system disk window. Place the arrow on top of one of the names as a picture of a file folder. Next, move the pointer until it and holding a pencil.
These pictures are called icons, and in some mouse-based applications, these icons represent some directories and other applications.